Welcome to another episode of Rewind, a Closer Look, where we revisit late 90s action thrillers that somehow survived the era of Frosted Tips and Limp Bizkit. And with all the recent chaos about the Netflix and Warner Brothers merger, I figured it was the perfect time to crack open my personal DVD vault and go spelunking for a WB classic. The first thing staring back at me? 1999's Chill Factor, a movie that boldly asks, what if the fate of America depended on an ice cream truck? And honestly, it works way better than it has any right to. The movie begins on a remote tropical island, shot with that classic day-for-night filter that makes you wonder if your TV is dying. Here we meet Dr. Richard Long, played by David Paymer,
Please give me a nice down.
Get Shorty, City Slickers, overseeing a not-quite bomb called Elvis, a chemical agent designed to kill only organic matter once it warms past 50 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't explode, it doesn't go boom, it just erases every living thing in its radius. In theory, that radius is supposed to be 200 yards. In practice, they can't get the thing to work right, and this test is their last chance before the project gets shut down for good. Standing beside him in the bunker is Andrew Brenner, played by Peter Firth.
Public recognition neither interests nor motivates me.
Life Force and the Hunt for Red October. The movie cannot decide what rank Brenner is, Captain, Major, Colonel. It changes every time someone says his name. So for everyone's sanity, we're just calling him Brenner. He and Dr. Long get into the usual argument about moral objections, Geneva Convention, blah, 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 with Brenner actually wanting the test stopped. But too late. The final test begins. A printout suddenly reveals the kill radius is 5 miles instead of 200 yards. And before anyone can slap the big red abort button, Elvis overheats. The entire island gets wiped clean of organic life. And the military immediately decides, yep, definitely Brenner's fault, and ships him off to Leavenworth for 10 years. Dr. Long, no punishment, probably got a promotion, maybe even a parking spot closer to the building. 10 years later, Brenner is released and drives straight into an abandoned warehouse, because where else would you hold a villain meeting? He reunites with his mercenaries, gives a very vague, we all know what to do speech, and they begin loading weapons. Meanwhile, off in Montana, we finally meet Tim Mason, played by Skeet Ulrich.
Well, Ulrich, my brother says Ulrich. I say Ulrich, so I...
Scream in the craft. This is the only moment we'll call him Mason. Beyond this line, his name becomes Skeet. Skeet! Partly for simplicity, mostly because it makes every sentence 30% more entertaining. While they fish, Dr. Long starts dropping these surprisingly deep metaphors about hunters becoming the hunted, and I'm over here assuming this is some kind of foreshadowing.
Some people might say you're reading an awful lot into a simple thing like fishing.
Skeet and Dr. Long head into the local diner where Skeet works as the cook. A minute later, Brenner strolls in and slides onto the stool beside Dr. Long, launching into some psycho monologue about how the government is the real villain and he's just a misunderstood patriot. He asks how the weapon research is going, claims he doesn't blame the doctor for anything, and then casually walks out like he didn't just deliver a Bond villain TED Talk. And right on cue, Skeet arrives with Long's food without ever noticing Brenner was sitting there. Absolute pokeroo move.
Pokeroo gave it to me.
Pokeroo was here? And I missed him again.
Rightfully worried, Dr. Long goes to the military base to check on Elvis, and right on cue, Brenner and his squad roll up immediately after. They storm the place, kill everyone in sight, and when the doctor pops out like a jump scare, they shoot him too. Somehow he doesn't die and manages to crawl off screen because plot armor. Brenner's response? A cold, forget about him, let's find the prize. Here we meet Arlo, played by Cuba Gooding Jr.,
Show me the money.
Jerry Maguire and Boys and the Hood, cruising around in an ice cream truck. And considering we've just been told there's a bomb that must stay cold, I'm sure absolutely nothing will connect these two concepts. Cuba heads into Skeet's diner to drop off ice cream, and two local cops wander in for coffee. The chief immediately starts hassling Skeet about his rap sheet, vagrancy, public drunkenness, and then accuses him of selling booze to a minor. Skeet fires back that he wouldn't sell alcohol to a little geek like that. Plot twist: that geek is the chief's son. So yes, the cops hate Skeet. Check. Cuba wants cash for the ice cream, and while he and Skeet bicker over his creative bookkeeping practices, Dr. Long staggers into the diner, bleeding, dying, and carrying Elvis like it's a cursed family heirloom. He shoves it at Skeet, telling him to load it into the ice cream truck and get it to Fort Magruder now, because Brenner is coming for it. Then he gives them the rules. Keep Elvis under 50 degrees or everything within hundreds of miles dies. And just like that, the doctor dies in front of them. Skeet notices a commotion outside. Brenner and his men approaching, phone lines cut. He quickly hides the doctor's body as Brenner strolls in and casually interrogates him about Long's whereabouts. Skeet plays dumb, and although Brenner is definitely suspicious, he eventually leaves. Skeet and Cuba immediately start arguing about using the ice cream truck for a cross-state doomsday delivery, but after some yelling, panic, and mutual insult flinging, they finally agree.
I need your truck.
You are not taking my truck! How far you got to go?
They load Elvis into the back of the ice cream truck and immediately hit problem number one: the truck won't start. Cuba hops out to jiggle a few things under the hood, not because he's a certified mechanic, but because this truck apparently has personality issues and only starts when it feels like it. Once they finally get rolling out of town, two of Brenner's men are parked on motorcycles up the road. They hear the truck coming. One guy whips out a night vision scope, and the ice cream truck drives past about 10 feet in front of them. Buddy, if you need a scope to see something that close, that's not night vision, that's cataracts. They call Brenner to report a truck with two people in it. Brenner storms back to the now empty diner, finds Dr. Long's dead body, and just like that, the chase is officially on. On the road, Skeet learns the truth. Cuba didn't just work for the ice cream company. He stole the truck from his boss and was selling the ice cream on the side, which explains why he insisted on getting paid in cash. Mystery solved. Before they can argue about it, Brenner's bikers catch up. Cuba swerves the truck, and one biker flies straight into a big rig like he's auditioning for Final Destination. Glorious.
Holy shit!
The second biker leaps onto the truck, slips into the back, and starts hunting for Elvis. Skeet scrambles out the passenger door to follow him.
Take your gun!
Doesn't work.
What? Doesn't work! It's not even loaded! You mean to tell me you hijacked me with an empty gun?
Yep.
Hey! When this is all over, remind me to kick your ass!
Completely unarmed, Skeet climbs along the side of the moving truck, swings into the back, and starts fighting the biker. The guy eventually scrambles onto the roof with Elvis, leading to a surprisingly awesome moving truck rooftop fight. Skeet gets knocked over the edge and is left dangling as the biker stomps on his fingers. With Skeet hanging by one hand, the biker pulls a knife, but Cuba saves the day by driving close to a rock outcropping.
Get him to stand up, night shift! Hey!
One well-timed thunk later, the biker is no more. Back at the diner, the sheriff shows up and instantly decides Skeet is the killer. Zero hesitation, zero logic. This man saw one crime scene and went, "Ah, yes, my favorite suspect, the one guy not here." Brenner calls the boys and offers them a way out, which they immediately refuse, because being reasonable would shorten the movie. So Brenner responds the only way a 90s action villain knows how. He whips out a rocket launcher and blows up a truck in the middle of the road to block their path. The explosion takes out half the roadway, and Skeet and Cuba's truck nearly teeters off the edge before they manage to back it up. They jump out, argue for a bit, assess the giant crater in front of them, and climb back in, only for the truck to refuse to start again. Great timing, truck. Love the drama. Meanwhile, Brenner's team is speeding toward them, tension rising. The boys finally coax the engine back to life and creep past the massive hole in the road. Just as they regain speed, one of Brenner's guys rappels down in front of the moving truck and opens fire.
You okay? What the fuck was that?
Great plan.
They turn him into a human piñata, messy, loud, and surprisingly graphic. While trying to pass a slow-moving truck, they clip it and wipe out, sending the ice cream truck skidding onto its side. Skeet and Cuba crawl out through the windshield, sprint to the back, grab Elvis, and shove it into a duffel bag filled with loose ice cream, easily the world's most questionable cryogenic storage method. Now stranded with Brenner closing in fast, Skeet spots a boat strapped to the trailer of the truck they just crashed into. His genius idea: use the boat as a toboggan to slide down the ravine. What does Cuba think of this plan?
Oh, hell no! Don't let go! Don't let go! Don't let go! Don't let... Be still. Okay. Okay.
They somehow land safely at the bottom, and it's hilarious every single time. Back at the wreck, Brenner's men tear through the overturned ice cream truck looking for Elvis, but come up empty. Realizing the boys have outsmarted him again, Brenner is not amused. That's when the local sheriff finally rolls up to the scene. Brenner explains what Elvis is and asks for his help, and the sheriff practically lights up. His hatred for Skeet has already been well established, so the chance to legally hunt him down? He agrees a little too enthusiastically. Down on the river, the boys are paddling the stolen boat, trying to keep Elvis cool as its temperature steadily rises. Their solution? Just dunk the duffel bag in the river like it's a warm Pepsi. Shockingly, it helps. While they float along, they start swapping backstories, classic two dudes bonding because they might explode. Meanwhile, back at the military base, a federal investigator finally arrives and learns that, yes, Elvis has officially left the building. The local police also inform him they're already tracking Skeet for murdering Dr. Long. Perfect. Back on the river, the boys keep talking, keep bonding, and somewhere between near-death experiences and questionable boating techniques, Cuba finally becomes fully invested in helping Skeet. Which is a big upgrade considering 45 minutes earlier he only agreed at gunpoint. Conveniently, the river dumps them out in the very same town where Cuba works. He immediately heads to his old job to steal another vehicle because at this point Grand Theft Auto is just part of his daily routine. While he's arguing with his former boss and getting ready to bail, Brenner suddenly appears in the doorway like a discount Terminator. Skeet is next door buying a foam cooler and stuffing it with ice to keep Elvis from hitting that fatal 50 degrees Fahrenheit mark. His cell phone rings. It's Brenner, informing him he has Cuba and demanding a trade at the dam. Elvis for Cuba. Classic villain hostage swap. And then, just as I predicted earlier, Skeet looks down at a coil of rope and hears Dr. Long's fishing metaphor echo in his head. Hunters, bait, the whole thing. The movie actually brought it back, but in the least subtle way possible. Brenner's team warns him that the military is already inbound in helicopters, but he isn't worried. He insists they still have plenty of time. At the dam, where Skeet is lowering Elvis over the edge on a rope, using it as a makeshift dead man's trigger. If anything happens to him, Elvis drops into the river and bye-bye, everything. They bring Cuba out for the hostage swap. Skeet hands Brenner the rope, and then he and Cuba immediately bolt. Because Brenner, despite being a tactical mastermind in his own head, somehow never checks what's actually on the end of the rope. Spoiler, it's not Elvis. It's the oldest bait and switch in cinema, and Brenner falls for it like he's never seen a movie before. One of Brenner's guys, or woman in this case, opens fire as the boys run, hitting Skeet in the leg. Didn't really think that part through, did you, Skeet? She rushes over and holds them at gunpoint, and suddenly the brilliant rope plan looks a little less brilliant. The military rangers arrive and surround the dam, ready to end this. Brenner, who is apparently a major now because his rank changes more often than his mood, pops open the Elvis container, pulls out a vial, and threatens to unleash it unless the Rangers back off. They do, retreating to their helicopters with a "fine, we'll just get him later" energy. As one Ranger puts it, pick the battles you can win. Now that he has the upper hand, the Major prepares to auction Elvis off to the highest bidder. And because he's a full-on supervillain at this point, he plans to demonstrate the weapon using Skeet and Cuba as test subjects. His men drag the boys to the center of the dam, and the Major takes a tiny amount of the supposed Elvis and drops it onto the concrete like he's seasoning a steak. As his crew starts clearing out to safely begin the auction, someone notices on the security camera that the boys are trying to escape. Brenner shrugs it off. Doesn't matter. Because in theory, Elvis should detonate any second, except it doesn't. No boom, no meltdown, no organic death zone, nothing. Buyers start backing out one after another. Can't blame them. Who's spending millions on a weapon that doesn't actually do the weapon part? Realizing something's wrong, Brenner and his men rush toward the boys, and that's when Skeet reveals the twist. He swapped out Elvis earlier. The fishing metaphor strikes again. The boys hijack a delivery truck and peel out under a hail of gunfire from Brenner and his goons. In all the chaos, the foam cooler holding Elvis falls and shatters, because of course the one thing keeping the apocalypse cold was made of the cheapest styrofoam on Earth. Skeet salvages what's left, tucking Elvis into a surviving corner of the cooler and burying it under the last sad handfuls of ice. He then whips out his cell phone, which apparently gets perfect reception in disaster zones, and somehow gets through to the military rangers. He tells them that they actually have Elvis, not Brenner, and gives them their location while also pointing out that Brenner is right on their ass. Moments later, the military helicopters swoop in. Before Brenner and his men can storm the tunnel the boys are in, the Rangers blow up their vehicles with military-grade efficiency. Boom. No more chase. With the boys halfway through the tunnel and Elvis creeping dangerously close to that 50-degree mark, they hit a new problem: the sheriff. He's parked his cruiser sideways across the road, blocking the exit, because nothing says public servant like trapping two guys holding an apocalypse in a duffel bag. Skeet and Cuba plead with him, trying to explain the situation, but before the sheriff can process any of this, the military calls Skeet. They warn him that if the boys don't get out soon, they'll have no choice but to seal the tunnel. Elvis is already ticking at 49 degrees. The military starts sealing the tunnel entrances, confirming the story to the sheriff, and the temperature inches closer and closer to the threshold. Just when all hope seems lost, they find another abandoned car with a cooler full of ice, and Elvis finally starts dropping back into the safe zone. Crisis temporarily averted. Cuba and the rest of the trapped civilians begin climbing a ladder up an air shaft to reach the surface. Skeet stays behind to grab Elvis, and that's when the real nightmare walks out of the smoke. Brenner and his lady henchwoman are somehow still alive, limping toward him as Skeet tries to climb out. Because of course they survived. Villains always have one last round in them. They fight for a bit in the smoke-filled tunnel, trading punches while Elvis gets kicked, dropped, and finally spilled across the concrete. The Major manages to snatch the vial and get Skeet pinned, ready to finish him off, until Cuba appears behind him like a pissed-off guardian angel and shanks him right in the shoulder. Beautiful teamwork. With that opening, the boys sprint toward the one tunnel exit that hasn't been sealed yet. They burst outside just as the Major staggers back to the vial of Elvis, reaching for it like a man grabbing the last beer at a barbecue, and that's when the military collapses the tunnel in a massive explosion. Elvis hits its critical temperature and triggers instantly, wiping out Brenner in a way that can only be described as the CGI budget went here. The day is saved. The tunnel didn't explode, America didn't vaporize, and Elvis is finally off the board. Naturally, Skeet and Cuba start asking the military about compensation, for the trauma, property damage, attempted murders, heroic deeds, etc. The government's response? How about we don't put you in jail instead? Cuba shrugs and says at least they'll have one hell of a story to tell at a bar, maybe impress a couple of ladies, but nope, classified. No one would believe them anyway. According to the military, the only people who will ever know what they did are the ones standing here, which is right when two pretty paramedics walk over. Roll credits. Honestly, chill factor is way better than it has any right to be. Cuba and Skeet work shockingly well as an odd couple duo. They bounce off each other perfectly, delivering solid comedy between the genuinely great action beats. Sure, the plot is short, predictable, and held together with late 90s duct tape, but it's still a fun ride. What is strange is the rating. This movie is rated R. For what, exactly? There are a few splashes of blood, a couple of F-bombs, and that's about it. It easily could have been PG-13. And if you're going to commit to an R rating, why not go all in? Instead, we get the most polite R-rated action movie imaginable. Still, it's enjoyable, it's goofy, and it's peak 1999 energy, and sometimes that's all you need. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your favorite ice cream truck action sequence, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the wonderfully weird world of action cinema. This has been Rewind a Closer Look, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Are you crazy? Take the boat!
There's nothing in here, sir. They got away with it.
All right, let's clear the mess and move out.
Skeet!